afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Bryan Marketing Group podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting with actually our business coach, Mr. Mike Edwards of M3 Advisors. Since 1990, Mike has worked for over 30 years, consulting with companies, developing sales teams, opening trade distributions, training sales teams, raising investments. He's worked with name-worthy companies such as Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Cadbury, Schweppes, General Mills, Warner Brothers, Marvel, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Walt Disney, Surly. Look, he's just an impressive guy, and we're excited to have him on our podcast today. We asked Mike, actually, after meeting with him for several really powerful meetings with us, if he would mind sitting in on our podcast today. He didn't actually know that he was going to be on the podcast today. But we figured we were going to go over some really cool things and that it might just be worthwhile to have him do it with us here so that we can record it and ultimately share it with all of our podcast folks at home. Mike, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be exciting. And I know that sales is one of the things that we say around here at Bryan Marketing Group is sales solves all problems. But it's not always that easy, is it?
Never is, and it's more challenging today, really, than ever.
And when you work with other companies, and obviously as you work with ours, what are some of the challenges that you do see?
Most companies are still selling in the old model in terms of needs and benefits.
Okay.
And the key word really today is relationship and building that relationship and really using what I call my blueprint of the selling process, which is very simple. If we just shut up and listen, the customer will tell us what they want.
Speaking of that, and before we go too far, and speaking on relationships and the need to shut up, I don't want to miss the opportunity to introduce my better half, Lizzy, who often tells me that's probably what I need to do. But as far as relationships goes, Lizzy is a master within our organization and runs the operations side. So she is the relationship person within our organization. I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave out, so that when the podcast goes away, I'm allowed to, I don't have to sleep on the couch. And so Lizzy, tell us, I mean, you've been in the corporate world for a number of years. You've done a bunch of sales trainings. What do you, as an operations person, when a business is going through a sales training, something like what Mike would generally offer, as somebody who's been on the receiving end of it, what do you look to gain, or what do you look to learn from somebody like Mike as he goes through his sales training?
That's a good question, and thanks for having me on the podcast and giving me the shout out. In going through a training, I would like to learn more of just like the structure of a sales conversation. I've done some other sales trainings in the past, and really just like the flow of questioning, knowing when to shut up, and kind of the facts that you're needing to gather from the prospect in order to kind of cater and sell to their needs.
Do you find that that echoes a lot of the sentiment that you hear when you go into a business?
It does all the time, and it's really simple. It's more simple, the process, than we think it is, and there are so many different models, training companies, and books out there about sales. And the blueprint really is simple. I call it the psychology of selling. There is a real psychology to it. And it's stacking the bricks. If we think of gold bricks, and we're going to get into that here a little bit later, and getting our customers, if we ask the right questions and we shut up and listen, and we get them to tell us, yes, we stack those bricks from one side to the other, and we keep asking those questions and let them tell us what they want, then it gets down to the very bottom, whether there's an objection or whether it's, will we sign? Can we sign here? Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that, and there's so many different ways to handle objections, right? No, there's one way. We're going to get to that.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
It's simple. Bryan, whether it's price, whether it's can't do this right now, I'm so glad you told me that. Is that the only objection you have? Well, let's go back and go over the things that we were talking about and why we were here today and the reason we were here today, and make sure I didn't miss anything. And let's go over the questions, right, that we just got them to answer, and we stacked all those bricks to one side where they said yes to, and uncover anything else that maybe we didn't. Now, there's a key to that. First thing that you do is you ask for permission to take notes if you're in a meeting face to face. And then you don't forget those notes that you're taking, right? And if you're not and you're on a Zoom call and you're selling, do you mind if I take notes? Always ask for permission. But then I call it's the secret is inadvertently selling them. And a lot of salespeople don't, well, what do you mean by that? Well, it's developing your value, your core, what you're all about, the sales questions as to you're in this meeting with somebody. There's a reason why you're meeting. You've got to know what your questions are. You have to. And then when you ask those questions, you shut up and listen. It's that simple. Write down their answers, and you go back and reiterate what their answers were. You told me. I love those 3 words. You told me. Did I get that right? Stacking the bricks.
So let's say that you're selling coaching services to Lizzy and I. Can you give us an example of that flow, just so that the listeners at home can have an understanding of what that
Sure.
might look like?
Absolutely. So, and let me back up 1 second, because first, before I get into a meeting with you to sell you coaching services, executive coaching services, you have to have a powerful marketing message. In any organization, I don't care, everybody's selling. We're all selling something, right? So you need, you've heard the elevator pitch. You've heard of the 30-second pitch, the 20-second pitch. You've got to have a powerful marketing message. So any sales organization I'll sit with and I'll say, you've got to develop for each of your salespeople, and if it's congruent or the products are the same, a powerful marketing message. So, Jason, I help entrepreneurs, owners, CEOs, presidents, C-suite executives just like yourself clarify and attain your business goals faster than you can do on your own. That's 10 seconds. That's a powerful marketing message. Now, you're not asking me how to do that. Well, do you want to hear how you do it, right? You go into a 30-second pitch, and you have to know that pitch. If you're thinking that you're going to sell, hey, these are all my benefits, and push down their throat, you need, you're a dinosaur. Those days, that ship has sailed. So develop your questions. So I've got 4 questions. I ask whoever I meet, define success. Right. And I'll add to that. What would success look like to you, with a coach, with me coaching you? How would that look?
What do you generally get? Like, let's just say, define success. What's success for me and what's success for Lizzy, what's success for other business owners might be different. What are some of the general themes that you might hear? Because I imagine that the rest of it is, well, you told me that this was the important things. Correct. What are some of the answers that you generally get with
and success for everyone is different.
Right.
And that's where you've got to really, listen. And as they're telling you, they're telling you, I've got issues with time. Well, I don't believe in time management. I believe in priority management. That's another topic, another day, another story. Or I've got leadership issues with my senior team. Or I've got growth issues. Or we're not meeting the metrics. Or we don't have KPIs. We're not, and it's you're writing all this stuff down, and they've got something, and they're going to tell you. And so, when they start telling you those things, you're going to come back. And I have a lot of answers for those things, but I'm not going to tell them there right now, because this is your opportunity. This is where your salespeople's opportunity is to shut up and listen and ask the next question. So what was I selling there? Hope. Exactly.
See, I listen.
Second question, right? Jason, Lizzy, what would be a big win in the next 30, 45 days? There's something on their minds, and now this is in my world, that they're looking for, they're trying to achieve. and they'll tell you, and you write and you get those things down, and there'll be numerous different things. We need to increase our sales, our margin. We need to look at that. Whether it's you're digging into financials, whether you're digging in, I've got the wrong talent, whether you're digging into our products aren't selling or we have too much inventory. There's something we got to move inventory. What am I doing? Do you have too many products? What's selling the most right now? Let's only sell what sells and let's discount inventory. There's write all those things down. But there's something they're wanting to achieve or attain. Second question. Third question, what are your goals for the next 6, 12, 18 months?
So you're taking it shorter, starting with a shorter 30, 45-day approach, and then kind of giving them a chance to cast.
It. And they'll start at this point and again, I love the shut up and listen, because at this point they're saying, hey, whether they're, and again, when you go to the personality of DISC and the different assessments out there, the D's who, you really,
the dominant
personalities, they're sitting there and they're like, this guy's not telling me what to do. He's listening. Shoot, I'm going to tell him more, and that's a surprise to them. And they're going to just start letting it all out.
Vomiting information.
They're regurgitating all this stuff, right? And so now you've got all these questions. The fourth question, now for me it's 4 questions, but I typically will tell no more than 12 based on what you're selling, the size of the company, and the progress and the structure and the process. It could be up anything past that, too many questions, right? So what the fourth question is, now I'm getting into the negative, I hate that word, but the negative, and I don't like the word problems, issues. So what are your challenges? What are your issues? And then there's solutions for that. And at this point, they'll tell you what those challenges and those issues are. Now, you've been taking the notes, and then you get into the process of, now we start to try to, hey, got some solutions for this. You told me. Now they're like, hey, this person's really listening to me. This is applicable for any industry, any business. Whether it's the insurance, medical sales, all across the gamut. If you'll just figure out the right questions and listen, and then you get down to can we do business? And that's another thing where most salespeople are scared.
They're scared to ask for it.
Totally. But you've earned it. You've earned it because you did it. You went through this approach of stacking these bricks and getting them all on the side of, hey, we're compatible. Now, the one thing I didn't mention is I will tell you up front, hey, I may not be for you. I may not be the right guy. But if you'll just let me sit down and ask you 3, 4, 5 questions, or if it's another company and you start out in that way, and if based on those questions and the answers we come up with, that it's very apparent that we can help each other determine and derive and get solutions for you, then I'm going to ask you to work together. Right? I'm setting it up.
Right.
And then when you go through that process and that trust and that integrity, and you've listened, you've earned the right to ask for them, and it'll help salespeople want to ask, which they're so scared of. So that's somewhat that's the psychology of selling. Now, we haven't gotten to the objection yet.
I've always thought that the objections, I always just thought objections were buying signals. Basically, if somebody has an objection, that they were, if I could, would you, is what we actually kind of teach within the Brian Marketing Group model, which is, here's the objection. If I could solve that objection, would you do business, or would you think it was valuable, or would you find the opportunity to be something that you would want to pursue?
There's no doubt. Listen, they're talking to you and they're meeting with you at this point. There is clearly a relationship that can close.
Let me rewind, because I actually think it was an interesting question or thing that you brought up. Getting to the meeting. What's your advice? What would you tell a sales team to? I love the question asking and the basically getting to the point where we can come to a sit down. But how did you get the meeting generally?
well, there's many ways, whether you're using digital marketing, whether you're using traditional marketing, networking groups. There's a category of a whole list of different things that you can utilize. I like coffee.
Mm.
I like getting to really sit down and talk with people, but I do a lot of the same conversation, over the phone.
Right.
And if I meet with you and they can't have coffee, I'll go through this same process over the phone. You're building, and again, what are you doing? You're building a relationship. But what you have to start with is your guys and your girls, the men and women have to have the PMM. You've got to have a powerful marketing message. That's the hook.
Right. Do you think that, I mean, you've been doing this for 30 years plus at this point. Do you think that with the way things are today versus what they were in let's say, the 1990s, with the internet and Zoom meetings, like, is it harder to establish meaningful relationships when you're competing, for lack of better words, time-wise with, everybody else on the planet, and now after COVID and all of this stuff, people want to do all these virtual meetings? Do you find that from a sales perspective almost requires a different type of sale?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Dependent on the product and the industry. And hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory.
Sure.
Certain things, touch, feel, see, do, visualize, enact, how what does it operate? How does it operate? It just depends.
Okay.
Let's just look at what you're doing. Digital marketing.
Right.
You can convey the value, the proposition, and you can how will you grow through what you offer, and you develop the questions that you engage in that conversation, and whether it's over the phone or over Zoom. And again, I can do this the same way. You clearly can, and you have the tools. And so it's developing those questions. And again, I go back to that word. It's inadvertently selling them.
Right.
You're asking questions that they don't really know by how you ask the questions and how you laterally stack them. You don't get to the negative questions right away, and you don't get to their pain points right away. And then never tell them what they need, right? Never tell them what they need.
Let them come up with it. Let them figure it out.
You walk them right into it. That's what I call stacking the bricks, right? You're walking them right into it. You've built it, and then all of a sudden you have this whole vault. And you have all the gold, you have all the answers, and you have deserved asking the question, hey, I think we have enough here to do business. I think we can absolutely help you.
So take us to the next step. So we have the right then to ask for the business. What does that process look like?
So once I say, hey, we should do business, let's get into the, I want to know, let's get into the objection. Because you're going to get an objection. And you said it, most people are going to object. They're testing you. What's the biggest objection 60, 70% of the time? Price. Oh, I'm so glad you told me that. Is there anything else? So price. So money is the issue, and price. Let's come back to that. Now, this is a psychology. I want to go back and I want to see if there's anything we missed. All right, in terms of when we said we would discuss some questions and determine, what it is you guys are looking for to help grow your business, scale your business, and the value that you're looking for, and what we were talking about in our initial conversation. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. And what you go right back and you start looking at your notes, and you ask those same questions. Now, not just the same questions, mix it up a little bit. You've got more material there that you've been writing down. And is that right? And you go back. Now, you think there's no more bricks over here, right? Assume that there's more gold bricks. You've just got to stack the salesperson. Now let's get richer. If you think in that mindset, well, I'm just going to get more bricks here. I'm going to stack more bricks. Start getting them to say yes again. What happens to most salespeople? Price. Oh, I can't change the price. Or if I discount it, my margins are going to go here. I'm not going to make enough commission. Where's their head? Their mindset is gone. They've lost it. And you can see the the individual buying, they can see that they're swirling around with, oh, I got him or her, right? It's so often the case. Well, we're going to come back to price. So I'm going to get you to say yes again through another iteration of those same questions, maybe mix them up, maybe add more to them. And hey, based on these things, based on our first meeting that we ever met, based on today that these things are going to be very impactful and they're going to help you. I really feel like we can do business. Can we start? Can we start?
Okay.
9 times out of 10, you'll get them on number 2. But if you said no,
You got to go get more gold bricks.
no, so say, well, my price is, I'm not sure, I think it's still high. Well, Lizzy, what price? See, prices, we're just talking. Now, now we're negotiating. You've told me. A great salesperson says, we're negotiating. Now we're going to negotiate. I didn't stumble the first time. So what price, my value in everything we're doing here, and we've agreed that there's value in all of this. What price are you thinking about? And we're talking about, let's just say $5,000 a month in my world. I mean, let's just say that was the number. What price are you thinking about?
I think the most I could do would be $2,000 a month.
Okay, so $2,000 a month. All right, and when I said 5, I shouldn't have thought about coaching, but let's just say my normal. Okay, so let's just say my normal fee is $3,000 to $4,000. So you're really off the mark in some degree. I have to make a decision at that point. All right, that's not really going to work. Let me think about it. Let me get back to you. But let's say you gave a price that was $1,000 less. Okay, typically. Well, then I'm negotiating. I'm going to say, all right, I might can meet you halfway there. I'm going to negotiate back. What do most salespeople do? They give your margin away, right, Jason?
That's right.
Right. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to get a little commission. No, let's negotiate.
Stay on the horse.
And in addition to me, well, Lizzy, I'm $3,000 a month, let's say, and you've said too, 20. I could come down to 2,500. However, I'm going to ask you for something in return for that. See, in negotiate, I'm giving you something that I know that I have a value for, and I have margins in my equation of things, or the company will. And for me, it would be, I'm going to ask that you give me 2 people, 2 names. That's my world that you could refer me to that could utilize my services. Can we do business?
Let's go.
Let's go, right? But you can apply that in the same regard, and that's a whole nother, conversation in terms of when you get to that negotiating side. But you see, it's a psychology. When you think about it, it's you go back, and you're not going to get them all, but I'll tell you, you'll get a lot more than most salespeople do when they don't stumble over the objections, and they realize that they're testing you. I can tell you, I have talked to numerous people over the years and sales teams where people that were buying something, and you ask them, where were you in that process? I knew they would discount their product. I knew they'd give it away. People know that. But it's the people that then they'll say, why did you pay that full price? Because they stuck. That's what they do. This one lady I'll never forget. It's early. They stuck at their price because they made her believe that there was inherent value, and they didn't have to give it up.
It's really, really good info, and creating the. I hadn't thought about it. I mean, obviously we've done plenty of negotiations from different things, but I really like the piece where you said, okay, I'm willing to meet you in the middle, meet you halfway. But in addition to that, I'm going to need a little bit more, because what it does is it actually does give that opportunity to ask for referral business or whatever that may be. And that referral business may well turn into significantly more than that $500, delta that you created. That referral business, the affirmation of somebody, that warm handoff, if you will, actually I think is a really interesting thing that would be super valuable for us to take back to the team and to be able to actually implement within our company. Just the last question before we kind of segue or wrap up for today. I would love to know, Mike, what does success and winning look like to you? How would you answer that question if the tables were turned? Because I do think that it's important for in any relationship that both sides, we're super excited to have you coaching us. And what does winning look like in Mike Edwards' world?
Yeah. For me, it's very simple that I help you gain and achieve the results and the goals that you're looking for. And accountability is clearly the metric. What does good look like, right? And it's a metric. It's a really defined metric. It's very simple. And that's where you've got to have metrics and you've got to have goals. And I can tell you, there's thousands of coaches out there don't hold their clients to metrics, don't hold them to the standards of having goals. And then they might write a strategic plan, and the next 90 days or 6 months, they're looking at the strategic plan. But those are the things you have to look at weekly and monthly. And whether they're financial, whether they're sales, whether they're, depending on what departments or areas of the company that they're in, it's incredible value to have metrics in place. And then let's look at those. Those are things that should be looked at least monthly, if not weekly, certainly financials. But for me, success is the client achieving their goals, getting the results they're looking for, and understanding that success for each one of them is different. Like I said, there's so many different things that they might be having issues with. Or it could be, I don't have enough time. I mean, that we see that all the time with owners of businesses. I don't have enough time with my family. Well, heck, man, we can do that, because 90% of the time they're doing all these different tasks and worried about doing things that they would pay people $20, $30 an hour, $15 an hour that they're doing, and they're so far down working on all these different arenas. They're not doing all the things that they should be doing that they're paying themselves $500, $1,000 an hour for. Yeah. That's where I call that's priority task management, and just doing the things that make you money, certainly at the head of the corporation, and letting other people do things. We see that all the time. It's critical. And that's just from a task priority management standpoint. Leadership is a clear one with a lot of companies. Most people are still, you would be surprised how many owners are operating under still my way or highway. It's my way or the highway, and it's not going to work. You're going to have to understand how these new generations think, what motivates them, what excites them, how do you lead them, and what's their culture, what's their values, and so that and so everyone is going to be different, and you've got to get in and really get down and understand what it is, and lay out a custom. And the real key is really laying out a custom plan.
Yeah. And I think that, there's so many of our listeners that come to us because we're here to help their business from the marketing side. If our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you? How would they learn more? What do they need to do in order to have you help them to develop that plan?
Sure. You can look at our website, m3advisorsgroup.com.
I heard it's a good one.
It's a great site. Or you can certainly call at 772-486-5355, and we'll give you a holler back that day. And we'd love to. I have different assessments that you can take, even on my website, that 5-minute assessments, answer some questions and get you thinking about some things, finding out some of your things that maybe you would like to work on, or we'll just chat about it. I'll ask you those questions we talked about today, and we'll discover what you're thinking and if we can work together.
Awesome. Well, Mike, it is such a treat. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you for being so willing on the fly to be on our podcast.
Missed our lunch today.
Hey, this is I'll take this is food for good running businesses.
Absolutely.
And we certainly appreciate it, Lizzy. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. And guys at home, if you want to get a hold of Mike, again, reach out to him. Check out his site, m3advisorsgroup.com, or reach out to him by phone. Thank you so much for listening to the Bryan Marketing Group podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks again, Mike Edwards, for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.